In 2014, the beloved Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had their big movie revival released to pretty lackluster reviews, but an overall decent return on the $125 million budget, which meant the studio went ahead and pumped out a sequel 2 years later to similar reviews, and while still netting an overall profit, only about half as much from the worldwide box office returns as the first movie. These movies failed to capitalize on the nostalgia that many millennials have from growing up watching these cartoons. While I wasn't the target demo, when I watched the TMNT movie, I found myself bored by all the exposition between big forgettable fights, confused by the convoluted plot, and struggling to comprehend the mess that was on the screen. And all this comes down to the studio focusing on creating new and fancy CGI spectacles instead of focusing on building a compelling story focused around relatable characters. Now, I'm not saying CGI is terrible and should never be used, but when it comes to CGI, your characters are literally capable of doing anything. So it becomes all more important is what are you willing to not let them do? In the reboot, the first time we see the Turtles in action on screen, what we see them do is, in my opinion, the root of a lot of the issues the movie had. They are literally able to move around shipping containers with ease. That is a lot. So now the Turtles are impossibly strong. So now Shredder has to be in a superhuman mech suit in order to be a proper villain for the Turtles to fight. And since the Foot has to have a part in fighting the Turtles early on, they have to have guns and be a paramilitary organization with crazy big trucks and rocket launchers. But oh no, the Foot is supposed to be a reflection of Shredder. So now he has to have strange gun blades that recall back to his mech suit. See the escalation that occurs just from making the Turtles so strong? They can do the impossible and have seemingly no weakness. There's no limitation imposed on their characters. Compare this to the 1990 film. Here we see the Turtles are stronger than the average person, but not impossibly so. They have to depend on their ninja training in order to get the upper hand. This is a key plot point in the movie and is used to show growth and character development in the Turtles. The limit put on the Turtles' abilities can now be mirrored for the Foot and for Shredder, giving you a more grounded film that gives the plot room to breathe. Now the audience can focus on smaller moments that happen between expertly choreographed fights. The CGI problems are most apparent in the visual mess that is the Turtles' appearance. There is no limit put on the characters that are CGI. So the movie goes wild with the Turtles, and the entire movie suffers for it. They all have their own unique looks that are supposed to play into who they are as characters, which is actually a very cool idea. But they are too complex for characters that are literally always moving. And ultimately, aside from Donnie being a tech nerd, their designs don't really tell us anything about them. At the end of everything, you are left with hollow characters that you don't really identify with and can barely tell apart. The movie is so wrapped up in CGI action that it doesn't bother to create real character motivations or even distinct personalities for the Turtles. The Turtles in the 1990 film have a much simpler design, just actors in suits with animatronic heads. But the advantage that shines through with this design is how well the suits were done and give a lot of lifelike qualities to the Turtles. The movie actually gives the Turtles downtime to sit and be real characters together and let their personalities come through. Sure, they have their flaws. We see many visible seams in the suits, and there's moments where the animatronics in the heads aren't perfect. But overall, this design worked really well and gave the actors plenty of mobility to move and fight. Choosing to go a more restrained route visually allows the movie to slow down and for the audience to connect with the Turtles' characters on a deeper level. You see them act like brothers, mourn loss, and even just obsess over pizza. Another problem in the reboot is that these Turtles aren't ninjas. It may seem like a small thing to most, but when the word ninja is literally in the title, I kind of expect some kind of stealthy and talented fighters to be on screen at some point. Sure, in the beginning, April struggles to get a picture in her first encounter, but besides that point, the Turtles never really show any kind of proficiency with martial arts or even cunning against their enemies. They're just big, strong, and apparently have bulletproof shells. A ninja, in the colloquial sense, is a master of martial arts and able to evade enemies with ease. Here they're just big and strong with the traditional weapons the Turtles have from each iteration. In the 90s movie, the Turtles not only have to rely on their fighting skills to fight off large groups of the foot, but they also have to rely upon their stealth abilities to avoid being found in several scenes. There's even a plot point where you learn that the Turtles fight with a particular style that is so incredibly rare that Shredder recognizes their style the first time they fight. To the same point as the Ninja title, the Turtles in the 2014 reboot are essentially adults, which is actually pretty problematic for the entire basis of the story. Besides a throwaway line from Splinter about them being teenagers, there's nothing in this movie that makes me say, yeah, these are just teenagers doing their best against adult problems plaguing their city. The whole point of the Turtles being teenagers is to show a younger audience that they can make an impact on their community by using their unique abilities for good, all while still keeping the quirky attitudes or angsty teenager demeanor. The 1990 film gives us a lot of slang and different attitudes that encompass the youth from that generation. Kids could actually see themselves in these characters, something that is woefully lost on the 2014 movie. While not a limitation issue, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how April O'Neil in the reboot is a huge problem for me. My issue isn't with Megan Fox, it's how she's being written. I feel like the creators forget that Megan Fox is an actual actor and not just an object to oogle at on screen. The fact that her tie-in with the Turtles comes purely from her father really takes a lot of agency out of her character, and there is almost no focus on her job as a news reporter, other than the comedic relief character whose sole purpose is to act surprised and make advances on April. Give her more to do, and give her competence in her chosen profession. Focus on her abilities rather than just her looks. Compare that to the 1990 April O'Neil, who's not only a small business owner, but also considered one of the best investigative journalists in the city. She's a self-made woman, whose tie-in with the Turtles comes from her fearlessness in reporting and standing up to the criminal element in the city, not just from her relation to her father. All of these factors come together to make a rather hollow film that offers no real lesson, moral principle, or even, frankly, a story. Apart from a seemingly random character arc from Raphael at the end, the Turtles don't seem to really grow from this experience at all. This is where the 1990 film shines. From the start, the film embraces the show don't tell rule of good filmmaking. It shows how the Foot is behind a crime wave in the city, pushed on by the youth of New York City. This parallel will be played upon heavily by Danny, who is April's boss's son. We watch as he struggles throughout the movie, between doing what he knows is the right thing in his heart, or to maintain his teenage angst-driven loyalty to the Foot Clan. The biggest arc for the Turtles in both films is actually pretty similar. They must deal with their first real loss and rise past it without the guidance and help of their father and mentor, Splinter. While the 2014 film doesn't allow the audience to see the Turtles actually have emotion or an internal struggle, this is a huge anchor in the 1990 film. We see how distraught they are and how much they feel the impact of the loss of their father. We also see the internal strife between the personalities of the Turtles. Sure, the 2014 film gives a taste of this discourse, but since we don't actually get to know who the Turtles are on a personal level, it's just another surface plot point that is glossed over in order to give us a big ending fight scene. Every misstep comes back to the root issue, the movie refusing to put limitations on the characters and is ultimately why the original film has stood the test of time, whereas the reboot was largely forgettable. Overall, the 1990 TMNT movie succeeded where the 2014 reboot failed because it understood the concept of less is more. By limiting the Turtles' abilities and focusing on their personalities and interactions, the movie was able to create a grounded and relatable story that appealed to both younger and older audiences. The use of practical effects and simpler designs allowed for more authentic and memorable characters, and the emphasis on the Turtles' ninja skills added a level of excitement and suspense to the action scenes. While the 2014 reboot may have had a bigger budget and more advanced CGI, it ultimately failed to capture the heart of the original franchise. The 1990 movie may have had its flaws, but it understood what made the Turtles special and was able to deliver a timeless story that continues to resonate with audiences to this day. Like many who grew up in the 90s, I was actually really excited to get a reboot of the Turtle franchise. I went into the reboot optimistically, but unfortunately I was let down by the movie we all got. While I'm afraid to get my hopes up like before, the trailer for the Mutant Mayhem movie seems to like it's going to correct at least some of these issues. With the look of the movie following the Into the Spider-Verse animation style, and the Turtles actually being teenagers, I'm cautiously optimistic that these new Turtles can appeal to both a new generation as well as us older Turtle fans. It's a delicate line to walk, but at the end of the day, as long as this movie cares about the story and embraces limitations on what the characters can do, I'll be happy. Thank you everyone for sticking around to the end. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a like and subscribing to our channel. This is Cursory Analysis. Thank you.